The appearance of virtue is more useful than virtue itself.
Block 1. The price of wanting to be liked. What you're about to hear is not a self-help message. It's a direct shot to your ego. Because as long as you want to be liked, you will never be free. Machiavelli didn't speak for everyone. He didn't waste time with the crowd. He wrote for the few willing to pay the price of being themselves. Society wants you obedient, to smile even when you don't feel like it, to nod even when you disagree, to stay quiet, and if possible, to look like everyone else. But every time you bite your tongue, every time you accept what you despise, you're selling a piece of your mind, and the buyer is always the same, other people's approval. I know, because I've been there, and because Machiavelli and I knew each other. Block 2. The reunion with Machiavelli. They say that if you want to understand a man, don't read what others wrote about him. Read what he wrote about others. And Machiavelli wrote about men. But in truth, he was speaking about you, about me, about anyone who breathes and moves inside a system. He was not a philosopher locked away in an ivory tower. He was an uncomfortable witness, a man who walked among kings and traitors, soldiers and courtesans, and came back with his hands full of truths no one wanted to hear. When I saw him for the first time, yes, I saw him. He wore no crown, no robe of wisdom. He had the gaze of someone who knows too much, and the calm of one who has already paid the price for saying it. He studied me in silence, and with a half smile he said,
If you want to keep thinking the way you think, you're going to have to pay more than you imagine.
I didn't understand the warning at that moment, but today, I know he was speaking about this, the invisible cost we pay to fit in, the slow erosion our mind suffers every time we shape it so as not to make anyone uncomfortable. Because he knew something most forget, that real intelligence does not seek to adapt to the herd, but to survive outside of it. Block 3. The trap of sociability. Most people think socializing is an innocent act. They think it's just an exchange of words, a bridge between people. But Machiavelli saw it differently. Every encounter is a negotiation, a market where you sell fragments of yourself. And most of the time, you don't even know the real price. Today we call it being nice, being diplomatic, getting along with everyone. But if you scratch the surface, you'll see what he saw 500 years ago, that misunderstood sociability does not build freedom. It builds cages, because every time you smile to avoid discomfort, every time you nod to avoid conflict, you are training your mind to bend, and the mind that bends too much ends up breaking. He wrote it without anesthesia. It is more useful to appear virtuous than to be virtuous. Not because he supported hypocrisy, but because he understood the mechanics of power. In politics and in life, appearances are weapons, and also shackles. The problem is, when you start living to maintain an image, you lose the ability to live to maintain your essence. And that is when stupidity dresses itself as courtesy. Block 4. Conversation with Machiavelli. So should I avoid people? I asked, with that mix of curiosity and fear that comes from talking to someone who doesn't soften the truth.
No, you should avoid losing yourself in people.
He replied without blinking. He leaned toward me as if about to share a secret.
You can be in the square, at the party, at the table of the powerful, but your mind must remain yours. If you let it be rented out for a little affection or applause, it will no longer be yours, and reclaiming something you willingly gave away costs twice as much.
I stayed silent, and he, noticing my discomfort, smiled.
Don't forget this. Every word you swallow to please, every opinion you soften to avoid offense, is a coin you hand over. One day you'll wake up and realize your inner wealth has been spent on tips for strangers.
That's when I understood. He wasn't talking about being antisocial. He was talking about training the hardest strength of all. Being among everyone, without ceasing to be yourself. Block 5. The trap of social approval. Machiavelli looked at me as if he already knew what I was going to ask.
And how do I know if I'm losing myself in others?
He leaned back and spoke slowly, almost as if savoring each word.
It's simple. If you care more about how you sound than about what you say, you're already lost. If before making a decision you think about the group's reaction, you're already lost. And if you avoid speaking the truth because you fear the silence that will follow, then you no longer own your voice.
Approval is a sweet poison. At first it lifts you up, warms you, makes you feel part of something. But then, like any drug, it demands more and more. And to get it, you start cutting pieces off yourself. First your harshest opinions, then your boldest dreams, and finally, your ability to think for yourself.
Those who live to be liked,
He added,
end up thinking like everyone, speaking like everyone, and dying like everyone, without ever truly knowing themselves.
And then he delivered a phrase that still hits me.
The price of being accepted is always the renunciation of your true form.
Block 6. Authenticity as a threat. Authenticity is feared more than an army. It can't be bought with praise nor manipulated with fear. And any system, political, corporate, or social, needs predictability to survive. Authenticity shatters that predictability. When you're authentic, your silence carries weight. Your words unsettle. Your decisions don't follow a pattern that's easy to read. That's why institutions, companies, even circles of friends try to sand down your edges. They advise you to soften your tone. They invite you to be more diplomatic. They tell you it's not worth the argument. But underneath, what they're really saying is, stop being you, because as you are, we can't control you. Society tolerates rebellion only when it's harmless. The rebel who still wants to be liked is useful. The one who needs no approval becomes a problem. Block 7. The dinner I never forgot. It was an elegant dinner. Wine glasses, measured smiles, calculated conversations. A businessman laid out his grand vision to change the world. Everyone applauded enthusiastically, as if they were in a theater. But one question was enough to change the air. And how much do you make from it? The silence was so heavy that even the waiter stopped moving. That is the nature of truth. Once it shatters a mask, there's no turning back. I understood that being authentic is not a romantic gesture. It's a declaration of war against the lies we've all accepted for the sake of comfort. And while most will reject you, a few will quietly draw closer, grateful. They won't say it out loud, but they'll know someone still dares to speak what they think. Block 8. The broken mirror. Imagine society as a vast hall of mirrors. Each mirror shows you a different version of yourself. In one you look friendlier, in another more successful, in another more obedient. All these reflections are designed to make you like what you see, and to make you forget who you really are. But one day, by accident, you break one of those mirrors, and behind it, there's nothing beautiful, only wires, dust, and a system deciding what image to show you so you'll stay still, smiling, believing you're free. That moment is dangerous, because if you keep looking, you'll never be able to go back. You can't unsee what you've seen. And if you break another mirror, you'll realize they were all fake. Machiavelli once told me, When you break a mirror, you stop being a guest at the party, and you become a threat to the host. That's why so many people prefer not to look too closely. That's why they call you difficult when you ask simple questions. And that's why the path to clarity is lonely. Because in a hall of broken mirrors, most run to find a new one that gives them the lie they need to sleep in peace. Block 9. The voice you can't ignore. I'm going to ask you something strange. Forget for a moment that you're hearing my voice, because now it's him speaking. Yes, Machiavelli. Not with ink, not from an old book, but from the very crack you opened in your mind.
You've already seen it. You already know that most people smile to hide fear, and that fear is the cheapest tool to control a man. If you want to be free, you'll have to lose people. And if you want to keep everyone, you'll lose your freedom.
Then he falls silent, and the silence weighs more than his words. Because you know it, there's no turning back after hearing that. Block 10, the direct challenge to the listener. And now I'm asking you directly. How much of you still belongs to others? Look at your life with cold clarity. How many decisions have you made just to fit in? How many opinions have you repeated to avoid being singled out? How many silences have you kept to avoid making someone uncomfortable? Don't lie to yourself. Every gesture of social obedience is a brick in the prison you built for yourself. And the worst part is that you call it a normal life. Machiavelli knew this. True power is not in conquering cities, but in conquering the only city that has always been yours, your own mind. But conquering it demands something most people cannot endure: being willing to be misunderstood, to be criticized, to even be hated. Because the respect of your own conscience will always cost more than the approval of others. Block 11. The final break. If you've made it this far, you already know. You can't keep living halfway. You can't keep asking permission to exist. The next time you walk into a room, remember this. You are not there to please. You are there to observe, to decide if that place deserves your energy. The next time a conversation turns superficial, stay silent. Let your absence of words weigh more than 1,000 polite phrases. The next time someone tries to mold you, smile. But do not give up a single inch. Machiavelli didn't seek to be liked. He sought to be understood. And if they didn't understand him, it simply didn't matter. That is the mindset that rips you out of the crowd and places you on your own territory. A territory no one can govern unless you give it away willingly. Now you know. It's not about being liked. It's about respecting yourself. It's not about collecting friends. It's about not betraying yourself for any of them. It's not about being right in every argument. It's about keeping your voice even when the whole world is wrong. If you are going to make a vow today, let it be this. Never again will you sell your clarity for applause. Never again will you surrender your character for a seat at the table. Never again will you dim your fire for fear of others getting burned. Because the price of being sociable is your freedom. And the reward of being sovereign is your peace. From now on, every smile of yours will be genuine. Every word of yours will be precise. And every silence of yours will be a reminder that not everyone is invited into your kingdom. Welcome to the other shore. Here there are no crowds, only minds that have learned to walk alone and to govern themselves.